And welcome to another edition of the Tom Green Podcast. It's been a while since I've done the freelance airwaves, and that's because, life happens and work happens as well. So I was glad to talk with Lee Steinberg. That's right, agent Lee Steinberg on my last show a little while ago in the summer. And so I've talked to many of reporters, many of people I've networked with, how I went to the same high school as the person I am talking to today, and this guy has really helped me start my sports career, and it's always good to watch him flourish in the major leagues as well as in the National Hockey League. And I'm glad to talk with him about the American League and National League Division Series coming up. We call ourselves the Garber Sports Guys. I call myself the other Garber Sports Guy. He is Jon Paul Morosi. Jon, before we get talking, I want to say thank you for helping me get to the sports scene and helping me along the way as my career and your career flourish.
Well, Tom, it is my pleasure to do so. You, my friend, are the Garber Sports Guy. I am well down on that list, and just grateful to be with you today. And certainly wish you all the best in your coverage of a great weekend of high school football here coming up as well.
Absolutely, and I'm pleasured to be a part of the all-state board for Michigan high school sports for 11-man football as well as boys and girls basketball. And that's the other thing is I was happy to elect Max Fellows from Essexville
There
Garber
you go.
to the all-state team. So that was a feather in my cap towards Essexville Garber. But now, besides the high school scene, we got four American League and National League division series to cover. Of course, we got to start with the hometown Tigers beating Cleveland yesterday. I mean, Tiger fans like myself thank God we got out of this slump that it's seemingly been, as Tom Hamilton said, has been the past month.
It has been, Tom, and you never know sometimes just being able to win one series, how that changes the entire focus of a group. And perhaps it's now going to reinvigorate this Tigers team now that they're back to where a lot of us thought they should have been all along, which is playing in the division series. Of course, now they enter Seattle. They have had to build up three full games worth of pitching, which certainly can work two different ways. Obviously, their relievers. Will Vest pitched a lot of high leverage pitches for him in that series. So certainly we'll be curious to see how he bounces back. But now all of a sudden, Tom, the Tigers are in a situation where they've got momentum. They'll likely have to go with something that resembles a bullpen game in game one. Maybe they start with Cater Montero. We'll see. Rafael Montero maybe is involved in that game too. I would expect Holton, especially when Cal Raleigh's spot in the lineup is up, although I'm not really sure left or right how much of a benefit anybody has right now going up against Cal Raleigh. But this sets up nicely to where if the Tigers can pull off an upset in game one, then they've got Scuba likely in game
That's
two.
true.
So I do like the Tigers' chances to win one of the first two games in Seattle. I do think the Mariners have a better roster overall, 1 through 26, but the Tigers have momentum, and I think to your point earlier, Tom, they have now just a lightening of the burden. They were finally able to beat the Guardians. They were able to dispense a bit of the talk about losing the 15 and a half game lead. And I think now it's just back to regularly scheduled baseball for the Tigers now in the division series.
Absolutely. And Jared Smith had tweeted yesterday that losing this 15 and a half division lead only to beat the team that you lost it to is peak baseball. And I think that a lot of experts would say you pretty much spot on in that assessment.
No, you're right, Tom. And certainly at the end of the day, you think about the Rangers who should have won the
Yes.
division 2 years ago. They did not, but they went on to win the World Series. And when they were celebrating the World Series title, no one was really dwelling too much on the fact that they had not won the division. And I think ultimately is how the final series of your season goes. And the Tigers hope that they're playing still around Halloween, and that would be a really good outcome for Detroit. But it's going to be a big task here. The Mariners are a really good team now. The one thing I'll say is that Brian Wu, who's been their ace for pretty much all season, his availability for the division series is very much in doubt. He had a rib issue there, a pec issue, I should say, towards the end of the regular season. So we're not sure if he's going to be able to pitch. And if he does not pitch, it's certainly to the Tigers' benefit because he is at his peak one of the very best pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. The Mariners still have plenty of pitching aside from him. We have seen Gilbert and Kirby and Castillo. They've got a lot of really high end pitching too, but there's only one Brian Wu. And if he cannot pitch in that series and the Tigers have Skubal potentially being able to go twice in game 2 and in game 5, the Tigers' pitching benefit starts to become a little clearer.
That's true. And you were talking about Brian Wu with Robert Flores and Mark DeRosa and Lauren Shahadi earlier today on MLB Central. I watched it. Shout out to them. But yes, that's huge that Brian Wu, the status of Brian Wu is as a question mark as of right now. And of course, you have George Kirby, Luis Castillo as well in that rotation. Talk about the bats too. I mean, they added Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez in the at the trade deadline, and of course, Cal Raleigh. Cal
Right.
Raleigh has just been mashing this year.
He has been, Tom, and certainly it's a robust conversation about whether it's Raleigh or Judge as the MVP. I suppose maybe they'll match up in the ALCS if both the Mariners and Yankees win. Wouldn't that be quite a collision of the two of them
Sure would.
if that should unfold in that fashion? But you look at what Cal Raleigh has done, and there's a really strong case that he was the most valuable player in the American League this season because you get the 60 home runs, you do it behind the plate, catching a dynamic pitching staff that, while very impressive, is not the easiest to catch because, of course, all the splitters they've got, it's a really dominant group of starting pitchers and bullpen guys too when you include Munoz. So it is a really impressive group that Cal Raleigh has been able to shepherd through, and I think Tom, Cal Raleigh is at the absolute center of everything this organization is because it is an organization that offensively is built around the home run, and it's an organization that on the mound is built around dominant pitching and really expert game calling. In all those areas, Cal Raleigh is a very principal figure. So I certainly there's no wrong answers here between Judge and Raleigh. I might have leaned Raleigh a little bit, but I think the Tigers and their fans will, I believe, appreciate even more what Cal Raleigh has done now that they're facing him in this closely watched American League Division Series.
I could see a pitching I could see a pitching assignment just like Jose Ramirez where it might not be a bad strategy to walk this guy.
Right, and that's I think what it was for the Tigers a lot, especially yesterday, that they had decided that he was just not going to be the one who beat them. And
Right.
uh, you look at the way the Guardian series unfolded, I do think it's a really good point. Both are switch hitters, so both create matchup problems for you no matter what pitcher you're bringing in. They're always going to have the platoon advantage. And I will say one difference is the Seattle lineup after Raleigh is deeper and more experienced than what the Guardians had after Ramirez. Yes, there were some players, Valeria is one example, and Rocchio, others that had emerged. Bo Naylor is one more, who
Schneeman.
weren't necessarily household names, but that had impressive moments within that series. I do think the Seattle lineup is a little more brand name in many ways, and one that I think will be a bit of a challenge for the Tiger pitching to navigate.
Absolutely. And the last point before we get to the other series is that John Smoltz and John Shambi have kind of said the same thing where they talk about small ball a lot. Well, these teams have been getting through on home runs too. You can do one way or the other, or you can do both in some sort of way.
And I think that Tom, it advantages the teams that have both. The Tigers we saw attempting more sacrifice bunts in a 3 game series against Cleveland than they would typically do in a month of regular season
Yes.
baseball. It's a different kind of game, and yet I think is as important as anything else was the home run by Dylan Dingler. And then there
Yes.
were I do think it's important for the Tigers' long term prospects, Tom, that the
Yes.
inning that eventually swung this series in their favor was not built around the home run. It was built around good situational hitting, a lot of base hits. It wasn't even a lot of doubles and triples. It was singles. Torkelson, Green, that inning that really built onto its own momentum, really I think was important for the Tigers to develop some better offensive chemistry, better connectedness of the at bats, which I think is going to be crucial for them as they go up against a really good Seattle staff.
Absolutely. Moving on to the Yankees and Blue Jays. Of course, a lot of media narratives about this series, but let's talk about Cam Schlittler. I mean, that Aaron Boone trusted him, and it was the right choice. And I know that Aaron Boone's been very much criticized in the media over his 9 seasons in New York, but this one was a great decision that he made was to stay with Schlittler, and it worked.
Really did. I think it was a bit of old school baseball, Tom, that he stayed
Yep.
with him as late in the game as he could, all the way through eight innings. And I know that Aaron Boone, I'll say this: this is not a new revelation the way that he feels about Schlittler, because I had done multiple games with the Yankees during the course of the season, and multiple times Aaron would say to our broadcast crew, "Hey, we really think that Schlittler's a really good player, really good pitcher, and he's someone that we think we can trust. He's got the guts to pitch in a big moment." Well, I think the whole baseball world, Tom, saw that on brilliant display last night. Of course, it adds to the dimension that Schlittler is from originally the state of Massachusetts, grew up a
Yep.
Red Sox fan and a family of Red Sox fans. And so, yeah, it wasn't his favorite team growing up, the Yankees, but it certainly became the team that he now is very proud to represent. And he also arrived with an understanding of the rivalry and the stage. It's almost as though, yeah, it's from the opposite side, but you understand what the Yankees are all about. And so, really impressed by Schlittler. I thought his fastball command was impeccable. Really good ride on the fastball. And the Red Sox, I think we finally saw for the first time, Tom, just
Yes.
the full impact of not having Roman Anthony, who was their best player
Right.
for a lot of the second half. I wonder how that series would go if they had Anthony, if they had a little bit more production at first base. Uh, there are some what ifs there. I think actually Alex Cord did a great job of getting the most out of his group. But the Red Sox now left a little bit wanting about what their team could still be now in 2026.
Absolutely. So, what's going to be your X factor in this series for Yankees and Toronto?
Well, I think for me, the big question is, do the Blue Jays trust their young guy, Trey Savage, to start a game in the way that the Yankees trusted Schlittler? I think
Yeah.
that's the big question. The other piece of that is Bo Bichette. And if Bo Bichette can't go, and I think it's an uphill climb for him, Tom,
Yep.
then you might have to see Andres Jimenez playing shortstop, who I think can handle the position really well, especially defensively. Can the Jays' bats keep going? George Springer had himself basically a close to career season. Really good complementary at bats. I think Nathan Lucas had a really underrated great year for Toronto. Davis Schneider, Ernie Clement. Some of those righty bats, especially Schneider, is going to have to be, I think, really big because, of course, they're likely to face Max Fried early on now in this series, probably in game two. So we'll see how things unfold for what the game one pitching plan looks like. But I do think those righty bats against Max Fried are going to have to be really on point if the Jays are going to find a way to win this series.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about the three game threes is that these pitcher the pitching has kind of been depleted in a way, but you have to get through. You have to get through, and that's
Right.
the X factor when you get to these division series. So I know your time is pretty quick, so a couple more questions. I would say, what about the X factors in the other two NL series, Cubs, Brewers, and Dodgers, Phillies?
Yes, Tom. I think I'll have a couple thoughts on each here to close. I think that with
Sure.
with Otani starting now for the first time in the MLB postseason, it's hard to start anywhere but him. He's going to do something
Right.
in the MLB postseason that we just simply have not seen in generations, which is elite level pitching and hitting from the same person. He's going
Right.
to be on the mound there. We expect for Game One of the division series against Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies, who has been outstanding, one of the very best pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. So I think that's going to be a raucous environment there in Philly. That is one of my favorite postseason ballparks. Tom, when you get a chance
Yeah.
to see a postseason game there, how loud it is,
Oh yeah.
just the way that atmosphere goes. I think that to think that we're going to see Harper facing Otani in the postseason, Schwarber facing Otani in the postseason, these are matchups that we are just so excited to witness. And this is the best against the best, Tom. So I would just say
Oh
tune
yeah.
in this weekend. Of course, those games are going to be on TBS. The other side of things, Brewers and Cubs. I'll be curious to see from a starting pitching standpoint how the Cubs attack this series because they had to go with an opener there in game two. They ended up bringing in Shota Imanaga. Of course, Kate Horton not available to them for the foreseeable future. I think the Brewers have the type of diverse offense, contact-oriented group that I think is going to be able to probably quiet down that that Cubs team. I do like what the Brewers have done. They slumped a little bit though late on in the season, and so I think we're going to see, Tom, a
Right.
5 game series between the two. I give a slight advantage to the Milwaukee Brewers. I think it's their turn to finally break through. But the Cubs now, a lot of momentum. I really like the Padres. I thought the Padres were going to be an excellent team in the National League side of the playoffs, but it was the Cubs who
Yeah.
prevailed. So maybe, Tom, the
Right.
Cubs are better than I thought, and
Maybe.
they might actually have the chance to upset it. Of course, the longstanding connection. Pat Murphy, Brewers manager, coached Craig Counsell, the Cubs manager, when Craig was a player at Notre Dame. So it's a long-standing connection there that's going to make that National League side of the playoffs, Tom, even
Yeah.
more interesting.
Pocket pancakes and the Hiawatha train service definitely are going to benefit from this series. So, last question I got for you is it's kind of an ongoing thing between some of the group that I'm with, the Thumb Sports Writers Association. We love the
Sure.
Edmund Fitzgerald. Talk
Yes.
about the Gales of November that you're reading
Sure.
there.
Well, thank you so much for asking, Tom. My good friend John Bacon has written this story and written this amazing book about the Edmund Fitzgerald, the Gales of November. It's actually officially released next week. John was kind enough to get me an advance copy. I'm already enjoying it, and of course, there's a big old retired lighthouse there in the Thumb that is a big part of Great Lakes shipping for a long, long time. I think all of us that grew up close to the Great Lakes, on the Great Lakes, in our case, Tom and Bay County, you're
Yep.
always aware of where the water is.
Oh, yes.
And I think one of the things that John wrote about, and it stands out to you really early in that book, is just how treacherous lake lake shipping can be, and how dangerous these waters can be, and how in many ways ship, having a laker, as they call the large lake freighters, how they have a tougher task than the ocean liners and the ocean freighters, the ocean shipping boats. So I mean, I think in a lot of different ways, I learned a ton by reading this book about what it means, and obviously what happened in November of 1975. Of course, we're about to observe now the 50th anniversary, sadly, of the loss of nearly 30 crew members aboard the Evan Fitzgerald. So just to learn through John's description, also the song, Gordon Lightfoot and
Yep.
his band, the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, one of the songs that we as Michiganders learn and know and understand, that the Mariners Church in downtown Detroit, right there by the tunnel, so it's right there by the U.S. Canadian border. We grew up with this. We grew up with these
Yep.
stories. So I think for me to be able to learn more about a story that, as someone who's born in Marquette, my parents would share with me, it's something that is important, I think, to learn
Right.
as Michiganders and people who live in the Great Lakes. It's just a really it's an important story to know, and it's also important, Tom, to honor the memories of those that we
Yes.
lost on that ship that day. So just
Absolutely.
an important story, a sobering story, and one that still, I think, in a lot of ways, is just important for us to know and to share and to memorialize what happened that day.
Absolutely. And I look forward to reading it once it comes out. Anything else that you may have to add?
Tom, I just appreciate it. I'm proud of you for the work that you're doing. So keep it going, my friend. All the great work that you do there in the Thumb. Enjoy this weekend, high school football, and please do stay in touch and keep up the great work.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, John. Hope to hear from you again soon. Enjoy the division series.
Thanks, Tom. All the best.
I'll bet.